And we're live!
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Those Aren't Biscuits, your weekly pop culture talk show where we play video games in the background. This week it's Prominence Poker. I'm one of your hosts, Jonathan Cadotte, and with me as always, Owen Adams. Say hi, Owen.
Hello! Don't you think it's ironic that we're playing a game called Prominence Poker in the background?
Yes. Let's just kick this off with that astounding observation thing.
The ironing is delicious.
If you haven't tuned in before, this is a live talk show where we talk about things from comics to movies to television, video games, books, and everything in between. And the whole time, we will field your questions or comments as we go, so please drop in the chat, drop a line, drop pants. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Whoa, sorry.
Hey.
I got caught up in the moment. A different type of poker. But yeah, we'll be interacting with you guys in chat. So give us a few moments as we set up everything and we're good to go. Yeah. How you been, man?
Not bad. But how about yourself? How have you been? I know I've been pretty good. I've had a good time. I've been very busy this morning, but went out for some Tex-Mex this afternoon, which was good. I had a chimichanga, as I have been led to believe it is called.
Chimichanga.
Chimichanga. That's how it was spelled. If it was called chimichanga, it would have an O in. For chimichanga.
Chimichanga.
Chimichanga. The more you say it, the less sense it makes. I also had a starter that seemed designed to scold.
Scold?
So, I got these starters, and they were called jalapeno poppers, which, you know...
Oh, those are delicious.
Yeah, lovely, right? Jalapeno, cream cheese, in a crispy batter, right?
Yeah.
And as he puts them down, he goes, "Be careful with these when you bite into them, they're incredibly hot." I'm like, okay, good, got that, awesome. I like that. I'm all good with that. And then I bit into one, after giving them time to cool. Not only were they hot, the jalapenos were, like, unbite-throughable. So as you bit them, they pulled out of the casing, which was, like, one solid mass, and just poured, like, napalm-hot cream cheese, like, over me. Oh, it was, ugh, the most incredible cheese pain I've ever had, man.
Jeez. Well, trust me, being from Wisconsin, I know a thing or two about
Cheese pain. It was
mostly it's when you don't have cheese, you know, that's my kind of cheese pain.
It was half
the
a
pain of
jalapeno.
longing.
It was half a jalapeno facing down, right? So the whole process was like...
It sounds like a terrible yoga pose.
It was
downward facing jalapeno.
It was... That's when you do yoga after having too much chili, right?
Yeah.
So basically the jalapeno formed a little scoop designed to shovel boiling hot cheese onto me out of the... It was nice, though. It was delicious. And also the chimichanga was very good. They served it with this jalapeno jelly, which was good.
Okay, did you get the invite?
Dip. Yeah, I did, and then nothing happened.
Okay, let me try again. I think I jumped the gun.
Okay. Hello in the chat to Ninth Dimension Game and Fuzzy Weasel. How you doing?
Hello, Ninth. Hey, you two.
Ninth Dimension Gaming says, "I have never had a chimichanga."
And nor will you ever.
All the best chungas chime when the clock strikes 12.
It actually sounds like a dance. Like, come on, everyone, let's all do the chimichanga.
When you at lunchtime in Mexico, all you can hear is bong,
chonga,
chunga. It was delicious, though.
Right.
I really liked it. I've been to that same restaurant several times. It's a chain, you know. It's not like a single restaurant. But I've been there, like, that's probably I don't go that often, because they're always a little bit out of the way. They're never in, like, very prominent places. It's like the fourth time I've been. I think I've had the chimichanga every time, and it's always delicious.
Okay, are you getting these invites?
Well, hold on, let's see. Okay, I've got one here. I'm following it. Hey! I'm in.
Okay.
Like the Matrix.
There we go.
I'm in. I know Kung Fu. So how about you, John? How have you been?
I've been doing pretty good.
Woo!
As you know, it was kind of a holiday week over here, Thanksgiving. I had my Thanksgiving yesterday, though. Normally it's on Thursday, which is a weird fucking day to have, like, a holiday meal on a Thursday.
Yes, you were cooking your turkey yesterday, weren't you?
Yeah, I was. It turned out delicious.
So, were you with friends and family? Or were you having a lonely turkey?
Just family. Just like family.
Oh, I feel sorry
and...
for John's family. Were you with friends and family? Like, you know, a real good thing. Nah, just family.
Just family.
Fuck those guys. How dare you birth me then expect stuff from me?
Right?
Okay, I'm gonna call.
Oh, guy, we're already going up, huh?
I have completely forgotten how to play poker, by the way, so...
Well done. Well done. Which one are you? Are you the...
I'm the one with the
raised?
shirt. The shirt and the dreads.
Okay. Good. Oh, the shirt and the dreads.
It randomly regenerated my character, and I don't know why. Alright, what button is it to check the suits?
I don't remember.
There is a button where you can check poker suits, right? Oh, if you press down...
Yes, there is.
If you press down right trigger, it shows you who everybody is.
Okay.
Hello to Zoe the Zombie, how you doing?
Oh, if you click in the right stick.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, that's good. Okay, cool. Okay, well I've
hello,
got...
Zoe.
Ooh, I'm gonna bet. How the hell do you do this?
Owen's feeling saucy. Raising 10. You
Yeah!
badass.
Well, not to give the game away, but we're early on, so it's early days. I will tell you that right now, were it to go, I would have 2 pairs. Yeah, let's do this! All in!
Oh, he has a 3 of a kind, by the way.
No!
Which beats you.
I know. I just thought there was being music. Oh, I got 3 pairs!
Oh, I don't know.
No.
Oh, you got the full house. No, she got the full house. So you both lose.
Busted!
Hey.
I just thought it was funny.
Way to kick us off right there.
You gotta get into the game a little bit, you know?
Yeah, by immediately running out of money.
Why the hell not?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, talked a little bit before the show, and talked about some of the things we're going to talk about here, and yeah, I've been watching some stuff this week, so I'm gonna list off the 3 things that I've watched this week, and I'm gonna let you pick what you would want me to talk about first. All right?
Okay.
Okay. So, first thing, I watched all of the episodes that are currently available for Hulu's original series, The Runaways, which is based off of a comic book by Brian K. Vaughan.
Okay.
A Marvel comic book. All right? I have watched 12 out of 13 episodes of Marvel's The Punisher on Netflix.
Okay.
And I rewatched, for the first time since it came out in the theaters, Force Awakens.
Ooh, for the first time. Oh, I've seen that so many times.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do Force Awakens, because that'll ease us in a little bit. We always get better conversation going after we've learned to ignore the game a little bit. Whereas we've both seen Force Awakens, that'll go a little smoother.
Okay, so, I was watching it again, and I'm going to say, I still think it's probably my favorite Star Wars movie.
Oh, yeah?
As it stands. Because that's what I said last time. You know, when it first came out, that I thought it was kind of not my new favorite.
Yeah.
And it still is.
Well, I mean, let's face it. A New Hope's not going to be your new favorite. It's a pretty old movie.
Right.
But there are some more. What
let's-
are there some of?
There are some flaws in that movie, I would say. I'm going to call them flaws.
I would agree.
And I definitely think that I was I was definitely had the rose-colored glasses when I first saw it, that I didn't necessarily notice a lot of that stuff.
Which, to be
But-
fair, I would say that's the deliberate effect they want you to have watching that film.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Which is what I wanted to get into, is the pacing of that movie is really weird. It's a really, really oddly paced show. Or movie, I should say.
Uh-huh.
It's like I never realized how oh my god, fine, I'm gonna go in two here. I'm gonna go in hard.
I'm out. I have a pair of threes.
Yeah, okay.
I'm already out. I can tell you what I got.
Yeah, that's fine. So I never really noticed how quick it goes. Like, I never realized how quickly, like, you get from, like, that opening scene with Poe and the village and all that stuff to, like, Poe and Finn escaping, to Rey getting introduced, to them teaming up, them meeting Han Solo. Like, that happens so quick.
Yeah, it does.
Booyah!
Oh, well done, buddy. Oh, do you know, that's exactly what I had. Like, I had two
Yeah, I had a
pairs.
pair of jacks.
You would have a beating pair than that, but I had the two queens at the
Yeah.
end. I'm still glad I
Give me
folded.
my money. Give me my money. Yeah, that's right. You get out of here.
I would agree. I would say the pacing doesn't start to settle in a little bit until they get to Maz's castle. And then I think it
Yeah.
finds a much better tone and speed.
Definitely. Like, it's just wow. And the funny thing is that I kind of went in watching this again with a little bit of chip on my shoulder. Because I don't know if I talked about this on the show or not, but a while back I read this fucking list. Because I'm a sucker for lists, like everyone else on the internet. And the list was something like 10 ways the Phantom Menace is better than The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
And so and I don't agree at all with
No.
that.
Oh my god, why have I done that?
And-
Damn it.
Oh,
I did not mean to do that. But maybe someone will fold.
I was saying, oh, and you want to go to Vegas with me sometime? Like, oh, I didn't mean to do that. I didn't mean to do that.
Well, there's no risk of pressing the wrong buttons in Vegas.
Yes, thank you, Ninth Dimension. We will look into that. You're right. We have not changed a lot of things since we've switched from Mondays to Sundays.
They're gonna be so
And,
embarrassed when they see what great hat cards I've got. Oh wow, I did win! Hey!
Oh,
I'm so glad I went
wow.
accidentally all in.
Well done, sir.
Bust 7 players
So-
in the ring game. I'm working on that. Let's do this.
But I am gonna say though, all the pacing, like, there's no way, any, like, feasible way that you can make the case that Phantom Menace is better than The Force Awakens. Now,
No.
one of the reasons, one of the reasons why they say that Phantom Menace is better than Force Awakens is because, the rampant fan service of Force Awakens. You know, they weren't confident to do anything new because they just wanted to rehash A New Hope and all that sort of stuff. Like, yes, that is something you can say, right? You can say that.
Right. See, my read on that is that it's not that they weren't brave enough to do it, because I think Last Jedi is going to be very different. I think it's damage control from the damage done by the Phantom Menace.
Absolutely. And that's my thought behind it, was they would have probably done something pretty different had they not had to make up all the... If they didn't have to... Oh, wow. Yeah, no, I'm not...
See you later, buddy. I'm out.
No,
I'm out.
I'm going for it. I'm going for it.
Go, Johnny, go. Go, Johnny, go. Oh, I hope you lose all your money.
I'm gonna lose so hard. I'm gonna lose so hard. I'm banking on a really, really risky thing right now.
Oh! 3 all-ins.
Because if I get what I want, he gets exactly the same thing. Oh shit!
No, Johnny.
Ah, no, no. Yeah, I can rebuy it. I have plenty of money actually. But yeah, it's so that's my thing about that.
It begins on a hell of a roller coaster. As well. It really does.
There's a weird
right
pacing
in there.
issues, and there is a lot of fan service. But stuff like they said, there weren't enough new interesting characters, and I think that's bullshit. They specifically called out Maz Kanata, or whatever, as not being a interesting enough alien. Like, oh, it's just a little person with weird eyes. But can you really point out a speaking role character from New Hope that was an alien?
Right.
Think about it. Like, I can't.
And also, who's the interesting alien character who's new and interesting in the Phantom Menace? Jar Jar?
Right. Yeah. I mean, like, oh...
Great.
Like,
put Jar Jar in
Watto?
Force Awakens. Do it. Zuru Davis says,
like,
people bet crazy chips on this depending on which table you sit at. What was your starting pot? I think it was like, what, 1,000?
The starting pot is 15, I believe, actually, with the blind and the small blind.
I'm going a little bit risky.
But the buy-in is 1,000.
Oh, the buy-in's 1,000. Okay.
Right,
So I've seen
save
Force
this one.
Awakens a few times now. And I will say, I don't mind the opening. I will agree that it's fast. But I actually think I kind of like that. But
the other...
Oh, sorry. No,
Okay,
I thought
go.
you would carry on.
No,
No,
keep
no,
on.
you go for it.
No.
Well, I think it suffers from... I think that the thing I don't like at the beginning is it suffers from a lot of conversations that are over too quickly. Like, oh, okay,
Right.
done. Like, they
Oh, you
convince Han Solo pretty fast. Han Solo finds them pretty fast once they get on the ship, you know? It's got a lot of
Right.
stuff like that. A lot of stuff... And they always try and write... Like, in the Star Wars movies, that kind of works by, oh, they've got the Force, and it's bringing them together. But a lot of stuff does happen very, very conveniently to get to Maz's castle. And then from Maz's
Right.
castle, I'd say it's a much better movie. I mean, it's a great film.
Oh, I
all the way through.
I agree. Because I think, you know... I mean, it is hard for me to say this, because I've accused other things of this, and I've held it against them. But in my opinion, I kind of feel like they needed to do that. They needed to have that roller coaster right at the beginning, introduce these new characters, introduce this new dynamic that's happening in the galaxy, and go.
Right.
Right? Because it's what everyone always fails to forget about Star Wars is if you really, really think hard about those original trilogies, they're not exactly masterpieces in storytelling either. Like,
No.
there's some... It's some weird... Even fucking the holy grail of them all, Empire, is kind of a weird movie in general, and it has weird plot issues. The thing that people love about Star Wars is being in that galaxy having adventures.
Right.
Like, that's the fun thing, is just seeing these characters being like, yeah, let's go save the day, we'll fly some ships, pew 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 pew, lightsaber, fight, pew 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 pew, light side, dark side, good guys, bad guys, cool. Everyone's on board with that, you know? And So yeah, you need to have this roller coaster at the beginning to be like, okay, here are the players. Here's the situation. Now let's watch them have adventures in space with lasers and lightsabers and spaceships. Like that's,
right, and we need reintroducing to that universe, and
right.
and bringing back into it.
And that's absolutely where Phantom Menace failed. Where it was like,
well, do you know what's interesting? Coincidentally, I was watching Phantom Menace the other day. It's the first time I've watched it in a little bit. And something occurred to me that hadn't really occurred to me before, which is the prequel trilogy does it the wrong way round. They end with a movie that's the most familiar and Star Wars-y, and begin with the one that's the most weirdly not like Star Wars.
Right.
Whereas if they'd gone the other way, if Phantom Menace had been much more fan servicey and in tone, like as Episode 3 was, you know, if it had been a little bit more like that, and then by Episode 3 they were making it sort of weird with regal surroundings and odd fighters that look like nothing you've ever seen before and royalty and stuff like that, that would have felt very different, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. And I mean, if you really think about the original trilogy, right? You had the first movie, which is straight up just a standard hero meets princess saves the day sort of thing, right? It's pretty standard once you really break it down, right? Right. Empire, it's when all these good guys that you've come to know and love they run into their first big hurdle, and they don't necessarily win the day, right? They're set back.
Right.
But if you really look at like Jedi, the last one, that one feels the most out of place in Star Wars, because you start to get into this whole weird like family dynamic. You see characters like Han Solo being not the scoundrel. They're being honorable and all in on all in on this whole rebel thing, which is, you know, not, you have Luke, who is kind of like obtained his destiny and is like already this oddly clairvoyant and separated from the rest of the Galactic Society character now. And
there's also something really strange about Jedi, and it's more of a structural thing, less of a philosophical thing than the stuff you're talking about. But Jedi's also the first one to revisit material. Right. Like, it starts on Tatooine, and it feels like Tatooine. I know you spend a lot of time with Jabba the Hutt, and there's a lot of different stuff, but there's a real coming back to Tatooine feel to it, right? The first half is all on Tatooine, and the second half largely takes place on a recreation of the Death Star set. Like, it's this on the Death Star.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then...
well, and there's Endor.
And then Endor, it's different, but it's very much a battle like Hoth. Imperial robots versus downtrodden rebels, you know what I mean? Not exactly, but the Return of the Jedi for me feels the most like... do you know what I mean? It's like the difference between Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade and Temple of Doom. Because Raiders of the Lost Ark and Last Crusade are pretty much the same movie. Like, I think Last Crusade's a better film. I like it a lot. But they're very similar films, you know? And then Temple of Doom in the middle is just this really weird movie where you're like, wow, that was the second Indiana Jones film?
Right.
I mean, I love that film. I think it's really underrated. But it's a very strange detour. And Star Wars is a little bit like that, because Return of the Jedi is very much what you would expect from a Star Wars sequel, not what you would expect from a follow-up to Empire Strikes Back at all. And so there's this odd homecoming to it, which is what I like about Return of the Jedi. It feels like a circle closer.
Absolutely. It's you know, people give Jedi a bunch of crap, you know, for the Ewoks and all that sort of stuff, and which is fair. Like, I think there are some fair criticisms about Jedi for sure.
Right.
But it absolutely serves its purpose of being that end to that trilogy, you know. And when you look at the prequels, none of them really do that.
Well, the problem with the prequels is they lurch from one change of direction to the other. Like, I would love to live in the universe where Phantom Menace went down really, really, really well, so I could see what he would have done next in that world.
Right.
Because, really, if you look at what happens with those prequels, it's the story of George Lucas gradually giving up.
Yeah.
Phantom Menace is, if you look at it, Phantom Menace, that is, with all the money in the world, all the creative freedom and all the support, that was the Star Wars movie he wanted to make.
Mm-hmm.
With no restrictions. If you could sit him down and be like, what movie do you want to make? That's it. Clone Wars is... Attack of the Clones is... Okay. Nobody likes Jar Jar, so Jar Jar's gonna go. And people want more action, so we've got to get more action. And they don't like the kid, so the kid's got to become a 35-year-old man pretending to be a 17-year-old. Okay, it's not that bad, but you know what I mean? That's Attack of the Clones, and so you end up with this really weird film in Attack of the Clones, you know?
Yeah.
And then
if you look at Attack of the Clones too, there is a crazy amount of fan service in that one as well.
Yes.
You have the return. You have essentially the return of Boba Fett.
Didn't mean to do that.
You did again. You basically have the return of Boba Fett, or Jango Fett.
Who is fun in that film.
Sure. But, you know, that straight up, like, oh, we're just going to literally bring Boba Fett back. We're going to paint him blue.
But, you know, by making him Boba Fett's father, it works.
Yeah, I guess. Then, I mean, straight up, then you look at, the ending, right? That big fight in the Coliseum. Oh. And for some reason you have Queen Amidala dressed all in white with a blaster, looking very much like a Leia sort of thing. And wow. That's a good hand. Oh.
Yeah, I was out. I'm gonna rebuy. I mean,
there's a bunch of stuff in there where, like, it wasn't even like callbacks. Even there's even stuff like the fact that Yoda can now flip and fly and shoot balls of energy out of his hands.
Yoda in
and stuff
general
like
is a big callback because he's not in Phantom Menace that much. And yet in Attack of the Clones, he's suddenly this huge part of the film. Mm-hmm. Happy Halo Fish says, "Have you heard of Cuphead?" Yes, we both heard of Cuphead.
Yes,
not much to say about that. Looks great.
Yeah, the game looks beautiful, and I would love to play it, but I don't have Xbox, and I'm not sure if my PC could handle it.
I'm sure it will run on your Surface.
I think it would.
No, I agree, and also Attack of the Clones does things like it's got visual stuff very frequently. Did you see that tweet that was going around?
Like they straight up add the Death Star at the end of that, you know?
Yeah. Did you see that tweet that was going around that said every line of dialogue in Attack of the Clones is like the bad dialogue, the wrong dialogue option, the awkward dialogue option in Mass Effect? And they had that picture where Amidala's saying, "We used to come down here and play on the beach." And the top option was like, "That's so interesting, tell me more." The bottom was like, "Shut up." And the middle was, "Have I mentioned my intense dislike for sand?"
Which one's the Paragon path, you know? So yeah, like, okay, so just kind of, Force Awakens has by far some of the coolest new characters, in my opinion. I thought Maz was pretty cool. Like,
I didn't care for Maz. I can't lie. I don't think Maz is that interesting.
See, I like Maz because they do something with her that I think is kind of interesting. It's like one of the first times in Star Wars where you have a character who is not a Jedi, but is fully aware of the Force. I mean, I know you have like Rogue One, like later on, that you have the Defenders of the Wills or something like that. Those Blindy McBlind and Shooty guy.
Right.
And they're all like way into the Force. Oh, god damn it! Sorry, 1 second. I forgot to turn off my heater.
Poker boy, it's your turn as well. Whoa! Did you go all in deliberately?
I did.
Well
I'm
done.
very sorry about this heater. It'll turn off in a minute or two.
I like it. Well, that gets to something that actually really bugs me about the prequels, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know everyone, the world and his wife have said what they don't like about midichlorians, right?
Right.
But you know what bugs me the most about the prequels? Nowhere in the original trilogy does it suggest that you have to be born a Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they suggest that Luke is destined to be a Jedi because his father is a very powerful Jedi, right?
Right.
But they, in the prequels, they build this idea that only some people can become Jedi. The way Obi-Wan always talked about it, he seemed to imply that if you were a follower and you were dedicated enough to learning, you could do it. That it was an understanding of the universe anyone could tap into if they were enlightened.
I mean, and that's a weird thing. Like, for us being, you know, atheists, the most interesting thing about the Force for me was always the faith aspect of it. Like, if you had enough faith in the Force and you were willing to, you know, go all in and devote yourself to it, you could be a Jedi. But then the prequels come along and they're like, yeah, nah, it's you have to have a fucked up immune system.
You say really that being a Jedi is an autoimmune disease?
Yeah, exactly. That's what they make it out to be. Like, oh, fine, I'll call. But yeah, that's literally what they make it out to be like, though. It's this whole thing that's completely out of your hands. It's something to do with, like, bacteria and all that weird shit. And it's just like, no. Like, you're completely ruining the fun about the Force. Like,
what I want to know is, does that mean that if Jedi get sick, they can't take antibiotics?
You know what? That's a really, really good question.
It's kind of dumb, actually.
It's like, oh, I took some penicillin, and now I'm not a Jedi.
I lost 30 years of Jedi powers and training.
Right.
Oh, that'd be pretty good.
Nice to mention again. If you find a custard, I would like some too. I'm a fan of vanilla.
I did see this interesting thing someone posted on Tumblr where they were like, how much must Luke Skywalker be freaking out at the end of Force Awakens? Because here lands this ship that he thought he'd never see again. That was his best friend's ship. That he presumably knows through the power of the Force that his best friends died. And that was lost and had been sold so many times he thought he'd never see it again. And it's the ship that first took him from his home as a child. And it just lands. And then outsteps this girl with this robot that he abandoned and that he thought he'd never see again. And that was his best friend. And then she hands him this lightsaber that he dropped at the fight in Cloud City that fell out of the sky that he was fairly sure he would never see again.
Right, like, and that ending definitely does come off like, I'm here to kill you. That's kind of what it looks like. And
then they were like, so is it, could the Force have a more direct way of saying, you can't run away from your past?
Well, like, you know what that scene actually reminds me of a lot? Did you ever play the first Mafia game?
No. Does it end with that scene? A girl just steps out of a with a lightsaber, like, what? So come with me if you want to live.
You play as this mafioso, and you do all this mafia stuff, and then at the end, you end up turning over state evidence, and you get out of the game, and whatnot. And then at the very end, it shows this scene of your character, like, watering his lawn. and all of a sudden his car pulls up and it's these two assassins and it's blow him away. It plays like very similar. Like he just turns around and looks at him and goes, it has like this wide-eyed look, and all of a sudden you see this image of, you know, the gun barrel running up, you know, up into the person's arm and stuff. It looks very much like how Rey holds that lightsaber out at him. So it's like, are you here to murder Luke Skywalker? Has that been the whole thing that no one's been talking about this whole time? Is they want to find Luke to kill him? Like,
I am so looking forward to Last Jedi and how that relationship's going to pan out. I'm genuinely interested by the idea that Luke doesn't want to train any more Jedi because they might just fuck up and kill people. Like, that's at this point, that's a reasonable conclusion, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and I do really, really enjoy this idea that they're toying with the trailers, is suggesting that Luke has realized that having basically a force, you know, no pun intended, people who are only strictly adhering to one aspect of that force is not necessarily a good idea. Like,
right, because if you watch the prequels and you look at why Anakin ultimately screws up, not what he says, because George Lucas is so bad at writing dialogue that the stuff he says is basically irrelevant to what you actually see happening in the story of the film. But if you look at what happened, the Jedi Order failed him by being a load of weird, closed-off monks who weren't prepared to discuss his fears openly.
Exactly. You know, like, everything that happened, like, granted, Anakin was kind of a douche to begin with, right? Oh, I'm gonna lose. I'm gonna lose this hard.
Like, I was thinking the other day, you know what should have been the catalyst for him turning?
What's that?
Okay, so if you watch episode 1, he says he had a dream that he was a Jedi, and he came back and he freed all the slaves, right? And then in episode 2, he comes back to because he has a dream that his mother's sick. But he gets there too late, and she's dead, and he kills all the younglings. Which is really weird, because then in episode 3, they're like, look, this nice guy's gonna turn to the dark side. He already slaughtered children.
Right? He's already there. Just because they weren't human children doesn't mean it's not any less evil.
Right, but we forget about that. That has no bearing on episode 3 at all, the fact that he did that, right? But then in episode 3, they don't talk about the fact that he's a slave, or that he's had this lifelong interest in freeing slaves at all. It's all about the pregnancy. Wouldn't his arc work so much better if the culmination was, as part of the war with the Republic, a load of slaves on Tatooine died because of a decision that the Jedi Order made? Like, they made a decision that was an acceptable risk, you know?
Exactly.
And then the boy that had always been a slave just, you know?
Right, because, like, it's hard to... As much as Anakin harps on, like, his past in episode 2 and 3, you know, like sand and blah, blah, blah. He oddly forgets everything about, like, his life.
Well, that's the strangest thing about the prequels, isn't it? Like, is there anything in episode 2 that you need to have seen episode 1 to really... And the same in episode 3. They are almost self-contained, but they all end on cliffhangers that aren't really resolved.
The only thing you could really say is, like, oh, why does he have that haircut? Oh, Obi-Wan used to have that haircut, too. But he doesn't have that. Obi-Wan doesn't even have that fucking haircut in episode 2, right? And I will say, I think that was actually a really good idea that they had. In Force Awakens, when Rey grabs onto the lightsaber for the first time, it has that weird vision sequence.
Right.
They actually use Ewan McGregor's voice. They use both. They use Alec Guinness and Obi-Wan's.
Well, so Ewan McGregor's probably the one thing from the prequels that everyone's willing to say, yeah, he was good.
Was good. Yeah, no, Obi-Wan in the prequels was great. Like, I loved Obi-Wan in those.
I like him in episode 2 the most. In episode 1, he doesn't really do that much.
No.
And in
I still think he's kind of cool.
And yeah, but he doesn't do very much. There isn't a lot of cool to go around.
Right.
And then in episode 3, he plays it perfectly. It's an incredible performance in episode 3. He is young Alec Guinness in that film. But
absolutely.
But he doesn't really get put in situations that seem right for Obi-Wan. Like riding around on a dragon shooting a big lightsaber robot. It's not really him, you know?
No, but see, honestly, I think that works in a weird way, because it suggests, like, it's like when you're talking to an old person that you thought you had an idea about. Oh, okay, this person's probably lived a pretty mundane life and, you know, whatever. And then you find out that they used to, like, drag race hot rods and,
Right.
you know, they had this crazy time in the war and they did a bunch of, like, stuff.
War crimes.
You know?
Grandma! You what?
But you know what I mean? Like, when you
Right.
find out they have these, like, lives you had no idea. That's what I like about Obi-Wan's arc, is that it's just, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, we had Obi-Wan in New Hope, and he's like this, the Force, and
But it's there in New Hope as well. When he has them fly in the ship and go to the bar and, like that scene when, in episode 2, when he sends Anakin to do the dirty work and then he goes off to get a drink. That's Obi-Wan in the bar, in the cantina in Tatooine as well, you know? It's the same smooth... Because that's the weirdest thing in A New Hope. He is at home with these shady characters, you know? He doesn't find that unpleasant. I think Obi-Wan works. I don't think Qui-Gon works at all, upon rewatching.
You know, Qui-Gon's weird. Like, because it's... To me, it kind of seemed like they were trying to have another Obi-Wan type character, even though Obi-Wan was already in the movie.
Right.
Like,
no, that's the joke, isn't it? Obi-Wan isn't in the Obi-Wan role, you know? That's the conceit.
Like, he was... Like, they kind of played up, like, okay, Obi-Wan at one time was Luke, right? This kind of impulsive, you know, kid, and like... But that's why I like Obi-Wan so much, is that through Qui-Gon, we get to see that... like, Obi-Wan is actually the... kind of... the first instance we get of a Jedi maybe not necessarily being 100% on board with the light side being the only thing, right?
Right.
Because we get the scene in Phantom Menace where Darth Maul kills Qui-Gon, and what does Obi-Wan do? He freaks out. He yells, he screams, he gets angry. He gets very, very angry. And he uses that anger and wins that fight. So, you know, in the weird meta narrative of this whole thing, you can kind of maybe suggest that Luke, through Obi-Wan, you get the first hints of where Luke is going with the whole idea with the Jedi. Like, no, maybe there is a place for reasonable amounts of anger and fear and things like that, you know?
Right. Because I think what they're gonna... I could be wrong, but I think what they're gonna say is that Kylo Ren became victim of the dark side because ultimately nobody was interested in hearing him discuss his anger and his frustrations.
Except Snoke. You know,
except Snoke.
They bring that up a lot, I noticed, in Force Awakens. I didn't I didn't remember how much they actually talk about Snoke in Force Awakens, but they bring up him a lot. Like, he is not necessarily a mysterious figure in this universe yet. To us, he is, the audience.
But no, they all know who he is. Which means he must have been a member of the Republic.
That's right.
Hello to All Chaos, who says, hold on, where's the chat gone? Yeah, the denial of feelings and bottling them up. Right, I think that's where they're going.
Mm-hmm. I think maybe... Hey, well done. I think maybe if they had... You know, in not in terms of filmmaking, but if certain characters like Obi-Wan or Yoda had more time before they ultimately passed, I think they would have eventually given that lesson to Luke anyways.
Well, that's the thing. The idea that Luke tried to make a Jedi Order the way of the old Jedi Order, I guess. You know?
That's what they're suggesting. That's what they say, is that, he tried to rebuild the Jedi Order.
And he screwed it up. Because the Jedi Order have been around for thousands. The thing about the Jedi Order, and this is the weird thing about the Jedi Order in that movie, the Jedi Order are absolutely part of the establishment. Not separate from it. They're the police.
No. Yeah, almost.
They're monk police. It's a really weird thing.
Well, it's funny because they constantly refer to themselves as being independent and like, oh, we're keepers of the peace and we're not soldiers and blah blah blah. Like, but you absolutely are.
And then they end up leading the army.
Right.
It's a very strange thing. And the only troops and soldiers and police you ever see are clones in those prequels. So what did they have before that? Did everybody just have droids before the Separatists?
Well, I think everyone had their own armies. We saw like Naboo had their own army and, that sort of thing.
Okay, it says, in Star Trek, the Vulcans eventually have to go crazy for a short time, but it's not discussed often. Oh yeah, the Pon farr.
Yeah, hold on, Org. I will not have cross-pollination between the Star Wars and the Star Treks here, okay? All right?
More than police...
I'm all for interracial relationships, but you will not mix your Trek with my wars.
More than police, they tried to force conflicts, either through coercion or the Force. Well, that's the interesting thing, isn't it? Because if you look at... I mean, the ridiculous thing about the prequels is there's actually a lot of interesting stuff to them if you can... But they don't form a good film. Like, the opening to Phantom Menace that kicks off the whole thing is the weirdest set of events. There is... And when you think about it, it doesn't make sense that much to the rest of the movie. There's a dispute over the taxation of trade routes. Okay? That's the setup. That's in the... And so because of this, the Trade Federation has put deadly battleships stopping things from leaving the planet. So from this, we can deduce that because of whatever this dispute is, which they never get into the nature of what this dispute is. They never really explain. But because of the nature of this dispute, the Trade Federation aren't allowing Naboo to trade, right? That's the implication, right? They can't send goods back or forth.
They're blockading them and they're starving them, essentially.
Right. But this is a cover to invade them and force her to sign a treaty so that it's legal for them to invade. That's the real plan. As if this is somehow so much more devious than blockading them and starving them to death. Which is strange anyway. But the Jedi are sent Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon at the beginning to essentially force them to reach an agreement.
Right, like they're sent to try to like broker a peace treaty.
Right, but they're clearly sent.
There's no Naboo delegate there.
No, but they're clearly sent as muscle, though, right? Not just. Right. I mean, they're diplomatic muscle. But when the Viceroy finds out that the ambassadors are Jedi, he's terrified.
Yeah, he freaks the hell out.
But then this is the weird thing about the prequels, because you would think that over the course of 3 films, we'd find out more about what that whole situation was really about, but we never really do.
No.
And
no,
then,
you
like,
don't.
how does... Do you know what really confuses me? And this is... I know that there is no answer unless you want to go read the Star Wars novelization. But how did that situation that ends with Emperor Palpatine becoming the new Chancellor Valorum voted out, how does that become the Separatist crisis? Is it even related, aside from the fact that Count Darth Sidious is behind both of them? Is it even related in any way?
It's not. There's so much about that, which getting back to my original topic here.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Not that I don't love going on a nice prequel rant, as we've done multiple times before, but that right there is the biggest issue. and why Force Awakens will ultimately be better than the prequels. As a singular movie, it is better than that entire trilogy, that entire prequel trilogy, because it doesn't fuck around like with these weird House of Cards, Game of Thrones plots. Like, it's just, look, there are the remnants of the Empire who still believe in this idea that fear and grip and ultimate control will is the key to having peace in the universe, right?
Right,
or at
the
least
fascists.
Order. Right. And then there's the people who don't believe that they think that, okay, we'll have our ability to make our choices for ourselves and free, and you can say they're more democratic, or possibly even capitalist. But you have that thing, and then you have this whole, that's the main conflict in the universe, and then playing out using, like, within this major conflict, there's a more personal conflict between people who have faith in the good sides of the Force and people who have faith in the bad sides, right?
Right.
And in both the original prequel or original trilogy and this new one, you see that where Kylo Ren, much like Vader, was part of the Empire, but he wasn't necessarily interested in pushing their ideals. He was more interested in establishing his version of their religion, and just used the Empire to do that,
Well, Ren's an interesting character, isn't he? Because ultimately what his goal seems to be, he doesn't seem to care that much about the ideology of it, which is very similar to Vader. Like, Vader isn't interested in the Empire, right? Particularly.
Right.
Vader isn't political. Palpatine's political. He's selfishly political, but he clearly also believes that he should rule people and that he should rule them through Force.
Right. Like, he believes in that dark side of the Force, but through means other than their faith. Right.
Right. And he believes that dictatorship is a good form of government and he should be the leader. Mm-hmm. He's a political figure. But neither Anakin nor... And that's presumably the same about Snoke. But neither Anakin nor Kylo Ren are themselves political. They are... No. I mean, that's the interesting thing about both Vader and Kylo Ren. They're both patsies who join for personal advancement in the Force.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately gain nothing.
Right.
They don't become more powerful than their masters.
And the funny thing, you can say the same thing about Rey and Luke as well. It's like, while Luke definitely is more on board with, like, the rebels in the original trilogy, towards the end, he's not really concerned with them anymore. He's concerned with what his father's existence means for the Force.
Right.
And I think you see that with Rey as well. I don't think she necessarily gives a shit about the Resistance and the First Order. She's now more concerned about this idea of, like, her parents and this Luke Skywalker character and what it means with her newly born powers.
Yeah, Rey doesn't begin her adventure in The Force Awakens because she thinks the Empire's evil.
Right.
Well, the First Order. Mm-hmm. Org in the chat says, would the Jedi just walk away if they can't make them listen, or is everyone just so afraid of the Jedi as they usually end conflict with people dying too? Yeah, well, I mean, they do go around carrying swords. There's a bit in episode 2 where they go for information in a bar, and one of their witnesses basically ends up dead because of it, because they're a shapeshifter. Mm-hmm. And while a crowd's building round, Anakin says, "Hey,
real
get
quick.
on with things."
Oh, you wanted to spin the camera around? It's a kind of a better view.
Oh yeah, sure. Good call. Anakin says, I can't remember the exact word, but he literally says, Jedi business. Go back, get out of the way. Kick back,
Right,
Jedi
yeah.
business. Like, they're the secret
very
police.
Similar, no, don't record us. Don't record us. All right? This thing's in your business.
Right. And, I mean, that's the weird thing. It's such a strange thing to get off the prequels. Force Awakens is a much better film. Like, Force Awakens goes so far the other direction. I would even happily have taken a little bit of political fleshing out about where the First Order and the Resistance are right now.
You know what's actually really funny about that? Like, you are right. Like, there's so much, like, immediate... No. This isn't politics. This isn't politics at all. We're not going to do anything with politics.
These people have never had a trade negotiation.
They go so far in that direction that they sort of just blow up the seat of the government in The Force Awakens without any scene ever taking place involving them.
Right.
Like, oh, we have the New Republic. Okay, great, they're there. Now blow them up so we're never, ever tempted to have a scene involving a Senate hearing or anything like that. We're just going to eliminate that off the table.
And you've got to wonder, in Last Jedi, what the ramifications of that are going to be, because there now is no Republic, right? The First Order wins in Force Awakens, and yet they kind of gloss it over.
Right. It is the funny thing is that, they suggest that the Republic was secretly funding the Resistance, you know, because they also recognized that this First Order, while not... I mean, there's a lot of implications, right? The first implication is that the First Order isn't taken seriously.
Right.
That's why there's not an open conflict with them. There's this group called the Resistance who recognizes them as a threat and starting a fight, but the Republic will not openly admit to supporting them because it means that they're going to have to admit to the galaxy that there is a threat. But you hear once that once they're gone, the Resistance is kind of left in the wind. When they attack the Starkiller base, they do it with like 20 X-wings, and that's all they have. They don't have a fleet. They don't have an army behind them. You know?
Right. But that's the thing. They never tell you in that movie what the size of the Resistance is and how it's affected by that attack. And I don't really mind that they didn't, because the film works without it. But it's definitely the feel of the influence of the prequels that did that, right? In the same way, no piece of marketing refers to that movie as Star Wars Episode 7.
Right. You know, I'm really, really curious about where they're going with, and I think we're seeing it already in the trailers, is that I think they're really going to avoid this. All right, let's look at the two other trilogies, right? Yeah, the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy. Both of them have this much more grandiose feel to it, right? This, while, you know, you got Luke and Leia and Han and all their little fun adventures, but there's like this big, massive conflict going on, right?
Right.
In the prequels, you have a big, massive conflict going on, but most of that conflict is played out in political scenarios up and towards the end, when war does break out. Right. I think what we're going to see with this new trilogy here is actually a much more personal take on everything. Because if you really look at the trilogy, there isn't the new trailers for Last Jedi. There's not so much any really scenes about like open conflict. You know, you get scenes of Luke and Rey and Kylo and Leia, you know, having their weird thing, and then you have Finn and Phasma. And after watching Force Awakens, I kind of forgot that weird personal conflict between those two.
Right.
And I think
character I want
really
to see
interesting.
more of.
Phasma?
I think there's potential there.
And which I think is actually really interesting, and something I would like to see more of, because if you really think about it, the only real personal conflict there was, or like interpersonal conflict, was Luke and Vader. Oh shit, I didn't mean to do that. Oops.
Hope you get good cards.
Yeah. Oh, I ain't doing nothing for me right now. But yeah, you don't really get much in terms of two characters directly opposed to each other. You get characters who are on conflicting sides, but not necessarily personally against each other.
Right. And you know, that's something, funnily enough, that's something you see, that's quite rare, actually. Like, you know what's a really good movie? really, just to go to a totally different movie for a moment, but just to make this point.
Sure.
It's a really, really, really terrific movie for an example of how to do a conflict with sides, but also personalize it. And I think it's been kind of forgotten as well. But do you remember that Zorro movie from the 90s? Catherine Zeta-Jones, yeah. Anthony Hopkins, Antonio Banderas. People have never seen it.
Yeah, Mask of
Zorro.
Mask of Zorro.
Huge film in the 90s. The kids are not still watching Mask of Zorro, right? It didn't last, you know? Mm-hmm. But that movie's really great, because Anthony Hopkins plays an elderly Zorro, like the original Zorro, right? Who's this old aristocrat who, the original Zorro story, and he's framed by, God, what's that actor's name? I always forget his name. But he's framed by the aristocratic villain and sent to jail. And there he basically is sent to prison until he's an old man. Then in the future, he escapes from prison and he takes on board Antonio Banderas' character and trains him to be the new Zorro, right? And it's yes. Zorro is basically the story of Robin Hood, but reset. You know, it's swashbuckling figure, steals from the rich, gives to the poor, fights against oppression for the peasants, right? But they
give or take, yeah.
They add two very distinct conflicts in that Anthony Hopkins is in it for revenge against the man who framed him and took his family, and Antonio Banderas' character is against revenge for the man, a fellow young man who killed his brother, the U.S. Army captain, who's part of his scheme to steal gold, and so what you have this moral conflict that they're both part of, this wider conflict that ultimately becomes a selfless fight, but then at the same time you have these two men who are bonded by their desire for revenge against two different people who happen to be on the same side. You know?
Right.
So this I did not mean to do that at all. This comes down to, hey! Oh, it's always good when that works out. This story of peasants fighting against oppressive aristocrats in California becomes this story of two people out for revenge and their relationship with each other as well, which is antagonistic. It's a really great film, actually. But there's nothing like that in Star Wars.
It's not bad at all. Yeah.
There's nothing like that in Star Wars. There's no... Everyone is either looking for their own personal destiny or in it for the ideology. No, Leia's in it for the fight, the good fight.
Right.
Han's in it for money. Mm-hmm. Obi-Wan's in it for the good fight. Luke's in it for adventure, you know, escape. His personal destiny and knowledge about his family. Nobody... Like, there is no... Like, the closest you get to a personal fight, and it's almost accidental, is Obi-Wan feels... In A New Hope, at least, Obi-Wan feels some responsibility for the actions of Vader.
Mm-hmm.
That fight between those two... I would say that fight between those two, and then the fight between Vader and Luke in Return of the Jedi, are the two only moments of, like, personal conflict coming to the fore, right?
Right.
Okay, I'm going to call, and then I'm going to mute my mic. You're going to have to entertain the stream for just a minute. I'll be back in a minute.
Sure, no problem. But, you know, that's Star Wars, y'all. It's we all love it. Everyone loves Star Wars for the most part. Even people who aren't really fans like Star Wars. You know, prequels have their problems. They really do. But ultimately, like, it's still in the same universe, and that's where the fun of Star Wars is just being in that universe. And there are the problems with the prequels are that it removes you from that universe a little too much at times, which is my biggest issue with them. I mean, there's also the fact that they're just not very good movies, and that's ultimately why Force Awakens will always be better than The Phantom Menace or any other prequels, is because that movie puts you back in the universe in a fun way that makes you feel good. Like it's a, even though there's some heartbreaking moments in that movie, at the end of it, you're like, yeah, I went on this goddamn adventure with Rey and Finn and Poe and Han and Chewie. We all had a great time.
And Sassy and Champ and Shadow.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, you said heartbreaking movie. I jumped to the first one I could think of.
But yeah, that's Star Wars. I don't know. I don't got much more to say on Star Wars, really. I don't want to make this a Star Wars show.
No, I agree. Well, we're going to get into plenty of Star Wars in a month.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Expect that one. Like when that movie comes out, because I'm seeing it not opening night, but the night afterwards.
I'm seeing it not opening night, but opening afternoon.
There you go.
We'll go for
if you're in the chat, please drop in, leave us a comment, say hi, anything. If you have a question or if you have a topic you'd like us to talk about, feel free to leave it there in the chat, and we will get to it.
I do have to ask a question now, though. If we're not talking about Star Wars anymore, does that mean we're not going to talk about Battlefront anymore?
Do you want to talk about more Battlefront?
It's just funny. I just thought, like, internet petitions, they happen all the time, but I did think that...
petition?
I did think that this petition... that they managed to make go viral and get a ton of signatures, they're sending to Disney to ask them to revoke EA's license was, I thought, quite funny. Because firstly, that's not how contracts work.
No. Not at all.
Pardon me. No, the only thing I thought was interesting was last week it did come out after we did the last podcast that with no loot boxes, a lot of people are basically now camping the game.
Yep.
To grind XP, and that actually, so they well done. They're actually resorting to putting rubber bands on the controllers so that the characters run around in game, so they don't get kicked. And I have to say, I think that's, I don't like those people because they're ruining it for everybody, and that sucks. But how many of those people who went to the effort of putting rubber bands on their controllers would have bought loot boxes,
Right.
And you absolutely have to put this on the developers at some point.
Right. For, not necessarily, condoning the actions, but there is a sense that this probably wouldn't be happening if you would have had a better fucking system in place, you know?
I thought that was interesting, and I wanted to mention that has become a common thing to do according to the Battlefront forums. That's the tip. Put rubber bands on your controller and just send them running around. Which is hilarious.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But yes, I'm done talking about Battlefront because there's nothing more to say about it until they get an update. Right. They have gone pretty much radio silence on that, though, haven't they? Like, what? What did we say about...
What do you mean, update? We didn't say anything about an update.
But no.
But, so, do you have another topic, or can I move on to the next one?
No, I'm perusing the news, trying to remind myself of things that I was thinking about this week, but you can tell me, what is your next one? What were your other two options?
Okay, we have the Punisher and the Runaways.
Okay, well, do the Punisher, because we might not get time for the Runaways. Okay. If the Punisher takes as long as Star Wars.
Yeah. I don't think it will. So yeah, I've been watching The Punisher on Netflix, and because I do make an effort to watch all of those Netflix shows because they're good. With the exception of Iron Fist. And don't start with me, Owen. I'm not having this argument again.
No, I agree. I agree, with the exception of Iron Fist, which is great.
They're all pretty good, I think.
I
So
would
I
agree.
was like, okay. Now, people have probably heard me talk about this in the show before, especially when I talk about Daredevil and the like. I don't like the Punisher. I think he's actually a really terrible character in terms of the comics. He's so one note, he's boring, and he just doesn't fit with the comic universe at all.
No, he belongs in an Image comic.
Right, he belongs either in Image or Vertigo or something like that, you know?
Or one of those back alley indie comics. Oh, damn you, Gristle.
Yeah. So going into the show, I definitely had some I had some preconceived notions. I didn't come in as a neutral party, you know?
No.
I will say, though, that I have actually, for the most part, enjoyed the show.
I'm not particularly surprised, because the simple fact is, they know how to make shows. Like, I think everyone has one they don't like. I wasn't a huge fan of The Defenders. Yeah, but I still didn't think it was bad. I just didn't love it, you know?
Right.
They were never going to make that Punisher show, and it would just be shit, you know?
Right. But there are enough things in it so far that have made me kind of on the verge. I liked it better than Iron Fist for sure. But as it stands, it's not.
Oh, so you liked it better than Iron Fist, meaning it was awesome, right?
I still cannot understand how you liked Iron Fist. I swear to God, you like it because you're contrarian. That's the only reason you like that show.
I just liked it. I just thought it was good. No, I didn't love it. I didn't think it was as good as Daredevil Season 1 or Jessica Jones or Daredevil Season 2, but I just didn't think it was terrible, you know?
Right.
I did like it more than The Defenders. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That's an old argument that you can troll our archives here, where I had to deal with this insanity. No.
Oh, I'd have won that as well.
The thing about The Punisher is, of all the shows, it's the one that's trying, and I guess maybe it has to, but it by far is the one that's trying its best to not be a Marvel show. Like there is no references to, as it stands, no references to any other Netflix shows other than the fact that Karen Page is in it, but they don't reference anything that's happened in any other Netflix show. Rosario Dawson doesn't pop in. They don't mention the incident that happened in New York. None of it. Because like in all the other shows, there's always like this very, very subtle connections with the main MCU.
Right.
But this one is like, no. We are not part of that. In fact, we are barely part of the Netflix shows either.
We've yet to have a character go from one to the other, though, from the MCU to the TV show.
Mm-hmm.
But then who could, you know?
Like I said, Hawkeye. That's the only one. That's the only one that could pull it off.
I'd take the Vulture.
Shut up.
What? I just think he would work.
I don't.
in Nick Fury.
So maybe. It's just, yeah. So there's that, which is fine, but what you get then, what you get when you try so hard to keep the Punisher separate from the rest of the MCU, you just kind of get a real standard action flick. You know.
So here's my big question then.
He's the equalizer, essentially, at that point, you know?
So here's my big question, because this is the thing that... I don't know if this is... So, I don't think we really discussed this, but is the main origin for the Punisher, as it's told in... Because I don't read the Punisher either, but is it true to the comics, this thing they established? Because people who don't know, the Punisher was in Daredevil Season 2. That's quite a major character. Mm-hmm. And they established in that one that he has a mental condition as a result of brain injury that renders him actually incapable of restraining his need for revenge, right? Which I thought was an interesting path to sympathy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no. They pretty much do away with that.
Well, that's not true to the comics either, is it?
No, I mean, it's... In the comics, no. He's just a bloodthirsty guy out for revenge and vengeance, and
so
he's Batman who is willing to kill. Same motivations, you know.
Right. Now, so you're saying that's also not a big part of this new show?
No. In fact, they go much further in his origins and make it more... They paint it more as like almost a redemption thing.
Right.
Because there's this whole plot that goes on. Because it's funny, they start to show off by concluding his plot from Daredevil. You know, because he was on this whole thing about, you know, I'm going to kill all these gang members who had a part in my family's death, because it was like this big arms drug deal thing that they took place in a park that went wrong, and his parents end up dead, right?
Right.
Or not his parents, his wife and kids. They basically started out by him finishing that. Like the show starts with like a montage of him killing the rest of them. You know, there's scenes of him killing the rest of the cartel, him killing the rest of the bikers, and, you know, he just, you know, that's how it starts. So essentially, his plot is done by the beginning of the show. Did you just go all in?
I did indeed. It's a gamble, but I'm going to go for it.
Sure, let's... You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts.
Do it, John.
So,
do it.
Oh, I didn't go.
Come on.
I just called. I don't have to go all in. I have more money than everyone. So it starts like that, but then what they do is they then elaborate. Let's do it.
No.
But then they elaborate and say that there's
thought
like
a pair of tens was a good thing to gamble on early in the game.
Yeah. They elaborate on the whole situation. They find out that Frank was part of this unit. I mean, they talk about it a little bit in Daredevil Season 2, but he was part of this unit, and they go more into what that unit did, and it turned out it was some really bad shit, and they were basically, his unit was used as this tool to... Doesn't
that kind of make him a hypocrite, though?
It does. It absolutely does, and they do address that. I will say that most of I will say right now, because I had the same criticisms watching it, I'm going to say right now that most of the criticisms that you're going to have about him as a character, they do address. I will give them that credit. They do essentially address all that sort of stuff. But anyways, you find out it's a much deeper conspiracy that his unit was part of. That's how his family ended up dead, and not all parties involved were taken care of with his initial crusade.
Right. Okay. Is that how the whole show's going to go, though? But then these people were also involved.
Well, okay. It's basically... It turns out being two main people that weren't taken care of. And they introduced the character of Micro, who's a character from the comics, as being Frank's basically guy in the chair.
Right.
His tech buddy. And his story is actually really interesting because he was an NSA analyst who came across a video that directly implicated Frank Castle's or the Punisher's unit in these war crimes. And when he tried to make him go public, the CIA, or this rogue CIA agent, tried to have him killed. And he basically, he's very much like a Edward Snowden type character.
That's a good way of doing him. That's a good take on a guy in the chat site.
And and so he goes into hiding, and he contacts Frank, basically to use Frank to eliminate the rest of these guys, so that he can come out of hiding and come back to his family. Because he had to pretend he's dead. His family thinks he's dead. And so it's a really weird dynamic, or not weird, good. It's a good dynamic because you have Micro, who has leverage over Frank. Frank don't really care that he has leverage over him. And, oh, screw it. I want to get nuts.
I don't think I can afford to get nuts.
But he uses this leverage, and it turns out that Frank is much more sympathetic to him, not because of this evidence that he has over him, but because of he's trying to get back to his family. Frank knows he can't get back to his family, because they're dead, but Micro can, if they kill these people who are still involved. It's not a bad plot.
Because the thing is, the Punisher is
much more complex than I expected.
The problem is the Punisher is very difficult to do, and so you need a plot like that. You need gymnastics in your writing to make it fit a little bit.
Okay. All right. So what I'm going to say is that plot line is really good. I think it's a good plot line. They bring in a bunch of different characters who are all kind of tangentially
But the side plot where Frank Castle learns to milk a cow for 12 episodes is a waste of time.
What are you talking about? That's a useful skill. I'd be interested in learning.
Here's milk in your eye.
There's this whole side plot where the show creators decided that we're going to get real fucking political. And
oh dear.
Yeah, it gets real weird.
I don't think the Punisher is actually... People often think the gritty, hard-hitting comics are a good place for this. I don't think a character like the Punisher is actually a good place for political commentary, because when you make him... When you set him in too real a world, you create more disturbing implications, I would say. Mm-hmm. You create problems.
Especially considering that the side plot directly involves the debate on gun control.
Right.
And, well, here's the thing. I am all for having this debate
not on Netflix.
Extend out from... Well, no, I have no problem with this debate existing in pop culture. I have no problem with it existing in all its facets, because it's an important debate to have. Except when your protagonist is a guy who explicitly collects as many illegally obtained guns as he can to kill everyone.
And you're supposed to like this guy.
Thing. Right, you're supposed to
'Cause
root for him. So you
I
can't
do
have a really
not.
nuanced conversation about it when your protagonist is a fucking bloodthirsty murderer who shoots people.
I completely, by the way, reject the argument, which I've heard many, many, many times, that you aren't supposed to root for the Punisher in the comics. I've read
Oh, you
those
absolutely
comics.
are. Yeah.
You're supposed to be like, yeah, he blew that guy away.
Right. Like, the Punisher is absolutely a character that is designed to tap into your id. You know?
Right.
He's a character that you're supposed to read and watch, and it's supposed to trigger that more basic impulse that you have in a safe way, you know?
I remember when they put him in the
And,
90s Spider-Man cartoon, and Peter Parker was like, this guy's a renegade. He puts people in his nets too tightly. When he tackles you, it hurts, whereas I do it all gently and stuff.
Right.
He's too dangerous to be allowed on the streets.
And he has a
my god, what have I
headband.
done? Yeah!
Why does he have a headband? But okay, so there's this whole side plot involving this, but they frame it in this other issue about vets coming back from the war and having PTSD and not being able to adjust, and the real life propensity of these vets who can't adjust to home life becoming radicalized. And so wedged right in the middle episodes of the series is there's this whole subplot of this vet that you see going to like group meetings and stuff like that and not dealing with things, becoming a terrorist. He builds bombs. He blows people up. And so for three episodes, Frank just drops this whole conspiracy thing. Like, oh, we got to catch this terrorist. And it's like, what? And because they're trying, they try at the beginning to have like this, in these scenes where they're in this group, like vet, support group thing. They really try to be like, they really try to be like, yeah, these guys are conflicted. They have issues. It's not an easy answer. There's different sides, like, to every conversation, and where one guy is really okay with being, kind of more lovey-dovey about everything. This other guy wants to become more militant, and
Now watch Frank Castle shoot some wise guys!
right, like they start out with this really weird, nuanced conversation about the idea of PTSD and treatment of vets and all this sort of stuff, and how it ties into gun control, and well, we fought for these freedoms, and now they're trying to take away our freedom to have guns, and they're having all these arguments that are important in our society. But then they immediately take the one character that has the most issues, and they go, nope, batshit crazy. And, oh wow, he won.
So is it a good show?
And I think it's good. Even the episodes where it breaks off into this really, really weird subplot, they're well done. They're well made, and I'll give them that. Like, the show is well made. The action sequences are pretty good, because they really go out of their way to give you action scenes that aren't just people sitting behind crates shooting at each other. They do a really good job in trying to set up these situations that make it so that sort of exchange can't happen.
I want to see a lengthy one take corridor sequence from The Punisher. Bang, 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 bang,
You
bang,
get
bang.
it. You get that.
Yay!
But they do frame it in a much different way.
Would you say it's better than the 1989 Dolph Lundgren Punisher movie?
Oh.
Do you know what we need?
So
We
they,
need- do
they,
you remember
actually,
that?
they actually do a really good job making the Punisher kind of a relatable character in a weird way. It's only when he gets into these moments where you know he has to kill that he kind of becomes a monster. So you get this duality in him where like, oh, when he has to interact with the rest of society or like Karen Page or Micro's family or anything like that, he's actually a pretty decent guy. Troubled, but decent. But he has like this switch where when it's time to kill, he's way into killing. You know? It's...
That sounds interesting. Does Dolph Lundgren make a cameo?
And then there's like this Homeland Security agent named Madani, who I think she's really cool because she has a tangential connection with this whole plot because
she has tanned genitals.
Yeah, 10 of them. It's crazy. She can barely walk.
No, I said tan.
Yeah. Okay. So she, yeah, she goes to the tanning booth, you know, and she doesn't. You know, some people just don't wear underwear when they do that.
Do you know what I want to see
fine.
now? I've decided I don't want to see my old Avengers movie anymore. I want to see... Do you remember that episode of the, that special they made of the 2000s Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon where the old Turtles came through too? You know? I want to see the present-day Avengers meeting the old ones.
Not
So I want...
having this conversation.
I want the Netflix Punisher to meet the Dolph Lundgren Punisher.
So,
And I want
really think
Chris
it's a well done
Evans
thing. They added
to
way
meet J.D.
more
Salinger's
interesting,
son
way more
in
interesting
that movie where he keeps
things
stealing
about
cars.
this show that I expected them to, because I really did think it was just going to be John Barenthal running around screaming and murdering people for 15 episodes, but they actually made a really, really in-depth kind of crime conspiracy show, and I applaud them for that.
I can say though, I would have watched the other alternative you mentioned too, if it was literally just John Barenthal running around screaming and shooting people for 12 episodes. But still an episode in the middle about how important gun control was.
Right.
But without John Barenthal in that one at all, or any reference to the events of the show.
Right, it's just like we
We'd
just
like to
have
talk to you
15
about gun
episodes.
control.
It's just Captain America pulls out his chair, turns it around. All right, guys, let's have a talk.
Now, you know
You
me,
might
I'm
think-
all about freedom.
But we gotta talk about responsibility as well.
Yeah.
But no, it's worth a watch. It really is. I mean, you get a lot of that same old, I guess cliche, whenever you talk about military characters. You know, because all these people from the show are all from ex-military units, or they serve together. So there's a lot of this, you know, we're brother in arms and sort of thing, and you know they really play up this idea that because we serve together, it's a deeper meaning and deeper connection than anyone else would understand, which is fair. You know, that's something I can't necessarily comment on since I never did serve in the military. So
I do like the idea that's where you landed with it, as opposed to, you know, walking up to soldiers and being like, this is bullshit. You don't got no camaraderie. You don't got nothing special. Rubbing your...
marked it down that those were Owen Adams comments.
Rubbing your platonic
Jonathan
love
Cadotte.
in my face.
Oh, Ashton Modry. Hi, Ashton.
Hi, Ashton. How are
He
you?
says, "Hi, Papa British and John." I don't get a name. I don't get a cool. Can I be like a family member?
So, ignoring the Dolph Lundgren Punisher for a moment, this is relevant, but it's not exactly relevant to this distinctly the TV series. What is your opinion of the 2004 movie? Just to bring this home.
The Thomas Jane one?
Right, with John Travolta. Because I'll be honest, I don't think that's a very good film.
No, me neither. I don't think so either, but it has a certain odd charm to it, I want to say.
I do admire their attempt to make, like, what was that, like a 12? Well, not in the... Like, it wasn't a very...
It was a PG-13 movie.
Right. I do admire the attempt to make The Punisher as a family film. Almost. Like that...
Why did I go all in? I'm just keep going on. I've drained my account so much that I have to keep on rebuying in.
Because they rebooted that, like, with the next movie, right? As well. Mm-hmm. Like, Warzone it isn't a sequel, is it?
No, I don't know. And that's a really funny thing about that, is that they made a PG-13 movie, and everyone kind of complained, like, okay, this is a real sanitized version of The Punisher, and no one wants to see that.
The poster looks like a horror movie.
Right? Like, oh, you don't want sanitized? You don't want that? Fine, we're gonna give you Warzone, where people's heads just get blown off for no fucking reason, and we have the Punisher wearing full-on battle gear, just descending from the ceiling on ropes, and just Boondock Saints in it, just blasting people away while spinning around, and it's like, I don't think we wanted that either. I mean, don't get me wrong, the Netflix show is brutal. It is brutal. Just like all the other ones have these moments where it's like, oh god, that's right, this is TVMA,
Right, well, I mean, if you're gonna do The Punisher, you need to aim for RoboCop and above, right? Mm-hmm. Otherwise, there's no point doing it. Like, the thing about, just to make a serious point about the Dolph Lundgren movie, that is not a PG-13, that movie. That movie, he shoots a lot of people in that film, right? I mean, it's a bad movie. I really do think you should watch that film one of these days just to see how strange a movie it is, because it's not done like a comic book film at all. It's actually... Do you ever see those movies that are kind of depressing? They just have a real sad, down atmosphere, even though they're not, like, very sad films. Like, that movie portrays Frank Castle as just, like, a washed-up, deranged, aimless... he's like Mad Max, right? He's like Max in that movie, right? He's just going from place to place, no purpose left, killing gangsters for revenge.
Right.
That's the Dolph Lundgren movie. But the weird thing about the 2004 one is, I mean, is it just me? But, like, I watched that movie. Frank Castle doesn't even seem particularly unhappy in that film. He's alright.
Oh, and the Thomas Jane one?
Right. He's like, he even found time for that joke with the ice lolly,
Right.
I mean, that's so goofy.
Just real quick, I'm gonna point this out for those watching the game. There's now a pistol on the table.
They heard us talking about gun control. I'm gonna get this out.
like, oh yeah? You want to talk about gun control? Oh shit. Okay, Ashton Modry says, what nickname would you like, Jonathan? I don't know how to spell your last name. That's fine. You don't need to. The reason I called Owen Papa British is that's his nickname. Call me Cousin Riz. I don't know.
Please do. And nothing else ever again, no matter how much he asks you to stop.
So yeah, that's what I'm going with, Cousin Riz. I'm okay with that.
So would you say it redeemed the Punisher a little bit for you?
Well, this version, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to go on now and start buying Punisher comics because I know what the Punisher is like in the comic books. I've read all the big stories. I've read War Journal, I've read Welcome Back Frank, which they say a lot in this show, by the way. They make that reference a lot.
Oak says no, he's Miss John.
No, oh, no! Yeah, whatever. I'm actually not too upset.
Is there a Punisher comic you like?
There was kind of but I think it's not even a completely Punisher story. There was a storyline called Suicide Kings, which it was essentially the Punisher, Daredevil, and Deadpool, with like Spider-Man shows up for a little bit, and like Black Cat shows up. It's that whole crew. They kind of show up, and there's this whole plot line to assassinate Wade Wilson that brings them all together. That one I actually enjoyed because it allowed them and all their differences in philosophy to really come to the forefront and not be like heavy-handed. It's
Right.
It was pretty good. But like I said, that's not a strictly Punisher story.
Well, there's one I like too, and it's called... God, I don't know which order it is. It's called Hearts of Darkness, and it's a crossover between...
with Ghost Rider.
Ghost Rider and Wolverine.
Yeah.
And it's essentially the story of 3 lost people who come together to find they come together to destroy... Oh god, what is that thing called? The Christ thing? I don't think Christ is in it. That would be terrible. Blackheart.
Oh, okay.
In the church, they come together to defeat him, but they don't plan to come together. They all find themselves at that house one night,
Right.
And that was really good because you got these 3 characters, but it explores more from the perspective of these are 3 characters in the mainstream Marvel universe who kill.
Yeah.
And they kill and they never let go of the fact that even with Wolverine, who's probably the most mainstream and beloved of that they kill and feel that it's okay to kill because there's something integral missing in them. There is a loss inside them. And yet it ends on kind of a hopeful note, and I like that book. I liked that book a lot.
That one's not bad. Let's see, real quick on the chat. Oric says he's not quite a madam yet. No, not yet. I'm trying though. I'm trying, Org. Someday, I'll be a madam. Ash Emodri says, but Deadpool is Wade Wilson. Yes, that's what I was trying to get at. Is that these 3 characters are brought together because there is a hit on Deadpool / Wade Wilson, and I won.
Oh, nice.
So that's how that comes together. But yeah, no, that's Heart of Darkness is good. Like, I mean, honestly, Punisher. Other than so I guess Punisher and Deadpool both are owners to my 2 least favorite.
Right. I completely agree.
Least favorite storylines in comic history. And both of them are oddly like the same thing. I cannot stand the Punisher kills the Marvel Universe as much as I cannot stand Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe. Because they're ridiculous. They're absolutely ridiculous. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not a firm believer in, we need realism in our comic books, whatever. The crazy leaps in logic that those comics go through to make it believable that the Punisher or Deadpool could kill everyone in the Marvel Universe is ridiculous, and it borderlines on offensive to anyone who isn't a Deadpool or Punisher fan. Right. That's how much I dislike the Punisher, because they wrote him into that story where he goes off and kills everyone, and I just don't like that. I don't like that use of characters in that way, and so for me to say that the Netflix show is decent enough depiction of Punisher, it actually says a lot.
The problem with those stories is they're the kind of idea that is worth a laugh in a single issue, like half-length story for a gag. But as soon as you start doing it seriously, there's no plot there.
Right.
There's no... It's like those Marvel Zombies things. Like, that was funny once.
Mm-hmm.
And then not like...
But now that they're on, like, what, the 4th or 5th iteration of that, it's... And they keep popping up in the mainstream storyline.
And there's no story. There's no... At this point, the gag's done. Like, I liked Marvel 1612, right? Is it 1612?
Right.
Because there's a plot there.
Something like that. Yeah, 1602.
Right. It's an interesting concept.
There was two, wasn't there? There was like 1602, and then there was another one.
Right.
They did.
And if they did it every year, it'd be the worst thing in the world, because by now they'd just be going through the motions, you know? But that first one's got a genuinely good story.
Yeah.
The idea that Captain America has traveled back in time somehow and refuses to go back, therefore has totally wrecked the Marvel Universe and kicked off the Age of Heroes too early.
Right.
The way that comes together is fantastic, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and it's fun that it was a really unique way of how they integrated those characters into that setting. You know, they had Daredevil, who was he like an assassin or something like that, but he was like a blind advisor who also doubled as this assassin. And then
everyone was basically like they were.
Like Iron Man was like a big old knight, you know.
Right.
But you also had the benefit that storyline was written by Neil Gaiman, who is one of the better comic book writers out there, and he doesn't do enough. You know, he's definitely more focused on his novel writing and stuff like that. But when he does come out and do a comic book, pay attention, people.
Well, have you read Sandman yet?
I have read some Sandman, not all of it.
I read Sandman from the beginning recently. I didn't finish it, but I started from the beginning and did about 3 of the collected volumes, you know?
Real quick, Ashton Modry says, Jonathan Cadotte, Marvel is going to stop... Oh, you figured out how to spell my name? That's creepy. Marvel is going to stop doing events like Civil War, Infinity War in the comic. Bullshit. I call... they may say they're going to stop doing that because they've done that before. They've said, oh, no, we're no longer doing big storylines. And it's always after one fails, right? Civil War 2 was not a big seller for them. The recent one where Captain America was member of Hydra.
And it's not even...
What was it called?
It's not even honest. People just need to believe that for a little bit to reconsolidate.
Right. The truth is that for every major event that doesn't sell well, there's one that does really well.
Right.
And you're always going to... They're willing to run that gamble, right? They're always willing to be like, okay, is this the storyline that really hits home, that people love? You know, because you do have stories like that really worked. The first Civil War was like that. People loved that storyline, and it was good. It was well written. You had...
Well, the famous example is the Spider-Man clone saga, wasn't it? Where it started off and everybody loved it, so they extended it and turned it into one of the most hated big events of all time.
But like, you had that, but then you also had Secret Wars that was amazing, that people loved.
Which one's Secret Wars? Are you talking about the original Secret Wars?
Right.
With the Venom suit and stuff?
Yep. You also had the
I've never
first
read that.
You had the first Infinity War where, you know, you had Thanos for the first time.
That's a great book. I read that recently, and it's
that is
great
really
fun.
well done.
Shorter though, shorter than people remember.
Right. It's what Marvel should come out and say is we are no longer going to do huge events unrestrained. You know, what they should do is come out and say, we're going to have our events, but we're going to keep them contained within the pertinent members of the event.
Right. They
We're
should
not going to
make
draw
them
everyone in.
They should make them led by the writers of the books they're going to feature in, and coordinated between those writers, not brought in from the top down.
Right. I mean, I wasn't a big fan of it myself, even though I am a Daredevil fan. But Shadowland is not a terribly written book. It's the only thing that really sucks about Shadowland is that they weren't willing to commit. And that's the problem with it. It was a fairly restrained event. It only really crossed over with the other street level characters. You had, Luke Cage and Iron Fist popping up. Punisher showed up. Oddly enough, Ghost Rider showed up. But it was fairly restrained, and it told a very cohesive story involving, Daredevil finally kind of losing it and deciding that he was going to just take control of the hand and instigate martial law on Hell's Kitchen, right? But they couldn't commit to this idea, and so at the end there was this really, really bad Deus Ex Machina that I hated, where it's like, oh, he was poisoned by evil tree. It was just, it was weird. But it wasn't badly written. And if they stuck to more storylines like that as their big events, you'd be fine. It would be absolutely fine.
There's two ways you can do it.
Wow.
Like
really?
that, where they're very controlled, and they tend to be the books you're going to be reading anyway. Or complete other end of the spectrum. I always thought, this is my go-to example. I like Batman No Man's Land. But the reason I like that book is because that was something that happened to the setting, right? But Catwoman carried on in that book, in the Catwoman book, and the Birds of Prey carried on, and Huntress carried on. All those books carried on with that stuff going on, but their plots were self-contained to their books usually, You get little things like the latest developments in the city, but that's what I've always liked about No Man's Land, in that you could read those books and follow the individual plots that were going on with this backdrop of the event. And that's the other way you do it. You change the setting but keep the books contained.
Yeah. And Secret Empire, excuse me, that's what I was thinking of. Secret Empire, that's a recent big event with Captain America being part of Hydra. They actually, the weird thing is, they actually promoted it as that, where it's going to be like, okay, when this event kicks off in the Secret Empire, all the books within it are going to be this scenario from the perspective of these different groups, right? There's going to be one with the new Defenders, it was Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, and Daredevil. What happens from their perspective? And then it's going to be like, oh, the Champions, which is, young Cyclops and Miss Marvel, Nova, and, what happens from their perspective? And then the Avengers and, that was the idea, right? That's how they promoted it. That was in the solicitations even. But what you ended up getting was, oh no, it's going to be from their perspective, but each one has this little nugget of information that you need to understand the other ones. Yeah. And it sucked. Real quick, touching on the chat, Ash Modri asks, what is a Deus Ex Machina? That is, essentially, it's Latin for machine from God. It's a old term that means it's a unexplained occurrence that solves an issue in a story.
In the old plays, in the classical era, they used to have the hand of God miraculously appearing, miraculously appearing in stage to fix problems at the end, and it was operated by a machine. It was literally the God of the machine, and it's used these days to reference anytime something. What it usually means is when a story writes itself into a corner and they don't know how to get the characters out, so you just write something in that you hadn't referenced before. And be like, oh, and by the way, there's a trapdoor that is there now. Yeah. But you never mentioned the trapdoor before they went in.
Right. It's a situation where you see it a lot like in action movies where the bad guy has the good guy dead to rights, gun to his head, and all of a sudden a cat or something jumps in the background and draws the bad guy's attention away.
Yeah, well, that's a very mild example. I think.
Yeah.
Those are
I'm trying
like
to
the
think-
least offensive ones.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a real good example.
Well, let's Google one.
Sure. Google.
Famous Deus
most-
Ex Machina.
Right. So curious, Ashton. You seem to know something about comic books. What's your favorite comic book character, storyline? Let us know. What are you into? And anyone else in the chat, if you want to drop what your favorite character is, and let us know. While Owen Googles famous Deus Ex Machinas.
I'm on TV tropes. Hey, I won.
Hey.
TV tropes. Let's go with films. That's going to be the...
X-23. That is a really interesting choice, Ashton. I would not expect that. Not just from you, but from anyone, honestly. Not a very... Well, I guess since Logan, she's more well-known. But before that, she wasn't a really well-known character. What makes you like her? Yeah, good call, yeah. And that was before Logan came. Thank you for elaborating. But yeah, what makes you really like X-23? I like her too, but I want to know what your reason is.
I only recently found out that X-23 was invented for the X-Men Evolution cartoon, not the comics. I didn't know that until quite recently. Mm-hmm. That's where she made her first appearance.
Yep. But yeah, it was very much a Harley Quinn-like situation where Harley Quinn was invented for that cartoon and turned out to be a fan favorite. Although I will say, Harley Quinn is probably a little bit more popular than X-23. No,
okay,
I think X-23 is really good.
Here's the most famous example I've found on this list, but I don't necessarily think I agree with it. But the example that's on TV tropes that's probably the most famous movie is the T-Rex at the end of Jurassic Park suddenly appearing in the Visitors Center to attack the Velociraptors.
No, I would agree with that. That is a Deus Ex Machina for sure. And
they do establish that the T-Rex is loose in the park. But yes, we haven't seen it in a long time. Mm-hmm. The visitor center's fairly closed off. But yeah, that's kind of a Deus Ex Machina. That's a good example.
Yeah. See, Ashton Modry says that he really likes the Foot Claw. Yeah, the Foot Claw is really cool. And I know you said you liked her before Logan, but I do really love that line in Logan where Professor X explains the Foot Claw as being a fact that she's female because
I'm out of cash.
Yeah, me too.
Here's a good one. Mm-hmm. Here's a good one. The Butler suddenly coming up with the explanation for Norman Osborn being the Green Goblin at the end of Spider-Man 3.
Yes.
The Butler we've never seen before.
Right. Yes, that is a Deus Ex Machina for sure. Yeah, no, it's...
That's one of the most egregious.
That's kind of what a Deus Ex Machina. It's a case when a very important plot point happens, but they don't give any sort of explanation for why it happens. You know?
They just say, "Oh, and then by the way, the helicopter arrived."
Right. And it has a better story than Wolverine.
Which Wolverine?
You want to elaborate? You want to elaborate on that, Ashton? I think he's still talking about X-23 has a better story than Wolverine. They're very similar, if I can remember correctly. But I haven't really got into X-23 enough to know. So if you want to fill us in on that, I'd like to hear.
But I would also think Logan is a better plot than the Wolverine movies too.
Yeah.
X-Men Origins Wolverine, man, that's such a bad film.
Oh yeah. Ooh. Yeah, I knew I was gonna lose that.
How many times do you think Wolverine's going to appear in X-Men: The New Mutants? They won't advertise. He'll just be in there like 30 times.
Right, just, hello!
Have you seen X-Men Apocalypse yet?
No.
So bad. Did I say that, like, the Beth kind of took a lot of tension off me a little bit, in a good way?
Okay.
Sorry, that sentence sounds unsettling.
Yeah, a little bit.
We were talking about
Like,
Justice League.
Did you have like a weight on you or something? Like someone drop a car on you?
We were talking about Justice League and whether we were going to see it, and then I was like, well, you haven't seen Batman vs. Superman yet, so maybe you need to watch that. And she was like, you know what? I don't need to. I like superhero movies, but that doesn't mean I have to watch them all. And I was like, wait, I thought that's true.
No! No! I won't accept it!
And I suddenly realized I don't have to watch Justice League. I don't have to watch Justice League. And I was liberated.
You know, I had the same feeling leading into my final topic, which I'll only touch on lightly.
I beg your pardon?
Shut up. I was having the same feeling because there's all these... It's not so bad with the movies, but now all these television shows coming out, because television shows require way more investment of time.
Like if you were
than a
trying to
movie.
watch the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe, on top of every movie, you've also got to watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Agent Carter, all the Netflix shows. What's the other one? Inhumans, which apparently is terrible.
Yep. And so I was really on the fence about whether I was going to watch The Runaways. I was always interested in The Runaways because I really, really liked that comic book. When the
Is
first
this an
run of it.
MCU show, by the way?
No, it is not. It's on Hulu. It is not part of that universe, as far as I know.
Well, because I've just Googled it and it says it is. Sorry, it came up just in time to contradict you. Marvel's Runaways, or
Well,
simply Runaways, created for Hulu. It's that one, right?
Yep.
It's an MCU
As
show,
far
according
as
to
I
this.
know. Well,
Based on the Marvel Comics superhero team of the same name and is set in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, sharing continuity with the films and other television series of the franchise. So there's one on Netflix and Hulu? I don't even get Hulu. Fucking Marvel.
Well, here's the thing. As far as I've seen, there has been no reference, no anything.
The next
to
episode, the Gruffalo will just be in it. Ruffalo will just be there.
Yeah.
Like, hey.
Wait, did you call him Ruffalo?
I called him the Gruffalo because of the book The Gruffalo. Because his name is the Gruffalo, just without the G.
Okay.
But what I'm hoping now is that the whole rest of the episodes you haven't seen rely on critical information from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Right. But, so... Just real quick, I want to touch it, because there's only been 3 episodes. There's only been 3 episodes of The Runaways so far, and I watched them all in just one sitting. It's good. Well, okay. How do I explain this? It feels like it's Marvel's attempt to do a teen soap opera, have their version of it.
Dawson's Creek.
Yes, or like the OC or One Tree Hill sort of situation.
Right.
And you get a lot of that. You get a lot where these characters are all high school students, and at one point they were all really good friends, and then something bad happened, and they all broke up and joined their own little cliques. And there's a lot of this and like animosity between each other, and they make fun of each other, and they bully each other, and all this sort of stuff. And it's very much a high school teen drama. And there's a scene where one character goes to a party and passes out and almost gets date raped, or actually just flat out raped, I should say. But gets saved, and so like, the dangers of underage drinking and all this sort of stuff. And then, but then on top of it, you find out that all their parents are part of this club called Pride that is kidnapping people off the street and sacrificing them for some unknown reason at this point.
As you do.
I know the reason because I read the comics, but but essentially, yeah, they're doing this, and all these kids, they discover this. They discover that their parents are in this whole situation, and now the scenario that they're setting up is, well, the parents don't know that the kids know, so the kids are going to try to play it off cool. And then we've already witnessed that some of them do have powers, possibly because of actions of their parents.
That sounds really interesting. Well, I might have to watch that if I can get it in the UK.
Right. Well, okay, Ashton, that's not 100% correct. It's not a cult. This is something they did make a few changes from the comic book, particularly with the character of Carolina. In the comic book, her parents are both actors, famous actors. In this one, though, her mother is actually the head of a Scientology-like church. And you realize that, like, the church is designed to hide these actions that this evil group is doing. But that is a change, and it's actually a good one. I liked it because they use the opportunity to basically say, yeah, Scientology is kind of fucked up, isn't it? And,
as if they need an opportunity to do that.
Right, Ashton. That's kind of what I'm getting at. Is that the church are the ones who pull these people off the street, these orphans, and they integrate them into the church and give them this false sense of security and like, oh, we're all a family. And then as soon as they have the trust, they lead them into these sacrifice ceremonies that the rest of the parents are involved in. But not the rest of the parents aren't part of this church. And you actually, that's one of the really, really interesting things I've seen in the show so far is that you get to see the inner workings of this evil organization. They don't all like each other. Like, they're really only associated with each other because each one brings something to the table that will ultimately lead to the success of this evil plot. Like one of them is a real estate agent, so he was able to secure the land that they need for whatever this plot is. One is like a Elon Musk type guy who's like this super smart guy but also a fucking asshole, and he's the one who develops the technology that like absorbs the life force of these people, except it doesn't quite work, but he doesn't want to tell them that it's not working the way it's supposed to. And then there's like parents who are chemists who develop the serum that these sacrifices take that puts them into like the state. It's hard to explain altogether quickly.
Well, I mean, you didn't explain it all. I might end up watching it, you know?
Yeah, but basically the Pride doesn't necessarily like each other. They're all using each other for their own means. It just happens that all their means line up. But they're also kind of loving parents as well. They are legitimately care for their children, for the most part. Like one of the main storylines is of the main kid, this Alex kid. The main kid, Alex, he tries to bring everyone back together, his old friends back together, kind of at the behest of his parents. His parents are like, look, you've been spending so much time alone, you're not associating with people, why don't you try to socialize again, get back together with your friends? And they do it. They ask him to do this out of an actual place of caring, which is, I think, kind of a really cool dynamic, is that this evil organization is evil in the sense that whatever they're doing involves sacrificing people against their will. But as people, or as parents, they're just normal parents. So whatever their purpose behind it is enough for them to be willing to do that, but it doesn't suggest that they're necessarily like completely deranged people.
Right.
Yeah. So no, it's pretty good. I mean, but it does suffer from those teen soap opera cliches. You know,
I don't mind shows like that though. I got through all of Smallville.
No, me neither, really. Not really. I mean, there's a really great scene, where two characters, this Nico and this Alex, are trying to fix something because the Nico character discovers that her mom has this magical staff, and when she discovers that her mom has this, she grabs it and immediately it causes it to snow in the office. So she can't really have her mom come home and now see that the office is filled with snow, and still play cool like she doesn't know something's going on. So she calls her friend Alex over, and together they manage to clear out the snow and get the wand to stop working. But now they have to explain why Alex is there. So they end up in Nico's room, and she just throws him on the bed, takes off her shirt, you know, she's wearing a bra, and she just jumps on top of him. And so the mother barges into the room and sees that her daughter is straddling this other character and gets all mad. Like, oh, you need to go home, and we'll talk about this later. And it's funny because that's, like, the decision that this Nico character made, that it was better for her to get in trouble for possibly screwing around with a guy while her parents weren't home instead of snooping around and discovering the magic staff. You know? Which is absolutely a plot point that you would have seen in something like One Tree Hill or The OC, you know? But yeah, that's basically what I have to say about The Runaways. I think it's pretty decent. I'm going to try to keep up with it as much as I can.
Well, it sounds interesting.
But it's not going to... Yeah, but it's not going to be one that... As of right now, it's not going to be something that I'm going to be like, oh god, I missed an episode of Runaway! Oh no!
Liar.
No, I'm in. I'm so in. Teenage angst and superpowers. Woo! But...
I think we're gonna have to make this the last hand, though, because I'm gonna start wrapping up.
Yep, same here. Alright, which means in oh, I didn't mean to. I was gonna go all in. As we did last time. But yeah, we're gonna start wrapping up here, so if you guys have any last comments, please drop them now. Any last questions? If not, make sure that you're liking and subscribing.
I'm going all in!
Oh, we're going all in! Well, I can only go all in as much as you did. Now, I can't go any further. Yes, and there is something about time travel in the show. It hasn't really been elaborated on, and we have not seen its effects or anything like that, but there is something about that evil plot that has to do with time travel. Thank you, Ashton, for reminding me of that. So yeah, like I said, please make sure that you're liking and subscribing. You're sharing this with your friends. If you just share it with one person,
you know what I mean? Like, nobody knows what we got. Might as well do it.
Nope. We're going. Hey, I think I won.
A Hawaiian wave of sadness. A Hawaiian wave? What the hell's a Hawaiian?
Yay! Oh, I even got a achievement for that in the Land of the Blind.
Aww.
All right. So I'm gonna get on out of here. Game results. After all of that, I only lost 2,000 chips.
I lost 11k. I gained some rep though.
I
leveled up. Oh, I went up 2 levels.
Yeah, so did I. Wow, I
Earned
earned
a loot
like a
crate.
shit ton of loot cases too.
I got a legendary loot case. I'm gonna open. Let's see what's in these.
Wow, I got a lot of stuff here.
It's table items, gold chain. Oh, well, thanks, legendary loot case. Let's get this epic loot case. I got some chips. 60,000 chips. Fucking hell. That's pretty good.
Oh, I get to join an affiliation as well. I can join the Hearts, or I can join the clubs. Ruled by Alice the Beast Basham, the clubs are Prominence's biker gang. Or I have the Hearts, which is ruled by Italia the Godmother Drago. The Hearts are Prominence's branch of Italian Mafia. So I can be in the Mafia or a biker gang. What should I pick, chat?
How many chips you got now? Did you get any chips out of those loot boxes? I just got 60,000 chips out of a crate.
Nice. I will find out.
Up to 90,000.
Alright, I'm going with the Mafia. Going with the Mafia. Yep. I don't really like bankers.
Oh my god. So many chips. I'm up to 106k
okay,
chips.
Epic loot case. I got a table item. Bone
that's
Demon
what I
Skull.
got.
Cool. And out of the other rare loot case, I got
bees.
a watch.
Bees.
Bees. No, I didn't get any chips. But I'm currently sitting on 69,000.
Okay, it says, ooh, I gotta ask,
yes.
do they allow you to buy chips with real money and light Yeah. I don't think they made any changes. But you know what? This game's free, so...
Right.
It's a very different controversy in my mind.
We didn't have to pay $60 and then have to pay to then be competitive, because you're... No matter what loot cases you buy, it doesn't make you better at poker.
You in the loot cases, you get things like 5 of clubs will allow use of this card in game.
That'd be awesome. That'd be so great.
All 52 cards have to be found in loot cases.
So, thank you all for watching.
What a condescending, sarcastic sounding thank you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for watching. No, for serious. Thank you all for watching. We really appreciate it. We love all the views and the interaction and the chat, and we'd like more of it. So please like and subscribe and share. And where can they find you, Owen?
Oh, go to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Owen Adams. It's good.
Yeah.
How about you?
And you can find me on my, a literal ace up your sleeve. Pretty much, Hogue. You can find me on my...
Pretty much, Urk.
I meant to say org.
Urk.
Right? Sorry.
Urk curse.
Urk curses. Taking our jibs. You can find me on my personal blog, which is johncperson.wordpress.com, or you can find me on Twitter, which is @johncperson. Everything else I do is pretty much on this channel, so if you're watching here, subscribe and you'll get all my stuff. Until next time, have a good one.
Bye-bye.